You survived your workday, your rush hour commute, and you are ready to just kick back and unwind. Put your favorite slippers on, make your favorite drink, and join me, King Kevin, for the Cocktail Hour with King Kevin. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Cocktail Hour. Thank you for joining us. My name is King Kevin, and I am your host and bartender, and tonight's going to be a good one. Let's just jump right into this introduction.
The more you know.
You've probably seen our next guest on TikTok or Instagram talking about butt stuff and queer health.
Nice. So you've got a hot date and you're all cleaned out, or at least you think you are. And things get started and whoosh, water rushes out.
He's a Mayo Clinic trained gay gastroenterologist and has been named a top 15 gay influencer on TikTok. He has been featured in Instinct magazine and on Mashable. Dr. Carlton also works with Scruff to provide sexual health education to the gay and bi community.
If you want to elevate your bottoming game, learn to control your grip. You see, the anal sphincter is just a muscle. You can control it. You can learn to clench.
Based in San Diego, California, he takes special pride in providing medical care to the local LGBTQ community. Welcome, Dr. Carlton.
The more you know.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you, Dr. Carlton?
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Kevin.
It's a pleasure to have you. So we were chatting before we got started, and I was just saying how much I'm a big fan. So before I get into any of the formalities,
Sure.
I think I, like a lot of other people, was scrolling on TikTok or Instagram and came across this doctor that was the butt doctor. And I think you were talking about the butt clock, which we can get into a little bit later on. And I said, oh, I'm using that. I am using that. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Carlton.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you guys.
So tonight on the Cocktail Hour, I created a special drink for the occasion. I'm calling it the butt drink. Now, it looks a little muddy, so we're going to find out how to clear it up.
My water is clear. Well, this is not water, but mine's clear. So
yes, and the idea is you want to go until it's clear. So I'm going until it's clear. No. So I want to jump right in at the beginning of this journey for you because you started out during the pandemic.
Right.
So tell us that story. How did you get into making videos and what happened that made you go viral and what was the response for you and your family?
Well, being a doctor during a pandemic, especially this pandemic where we weren't quite sure what we were facing, I'm 50 years old and I have risk factors. So I was terrified that if I got sick and I'm the only person who works in my family, that, our family would be devastated financially. And when I saw people around me start falling, I was like, oh my God, this is a really serious thing. I was terrified. I was anxious. My workload actually dropped a lot because I do gastroenterology, which is digestive diseases. So that was way far away from anything COVID, and the hospital was full of COVID.
Yeah.
We couldn't see patients in the office. We couldn't do procedures unless they were emergency or urgent procedures. So I had a lot of time on my hands. So the way I filled that was one night I was on the couch with my husband and I said, our kids are watching this TikTok thing all the time. Let's see what it's about. So I turned it on at about 8 o'clock. And then about 12 o'clock, I looked up and thought, oh my God, I've been watching this thing for 4 hours. I've learned how to cook chili. I've laughed. I've cried. It's figured out within about 7 minutes that I like hairy guys of color. So, so she knows, honey.
Yes.
So I got really wrapped up in it and thought, hey, this is cool. And my husband started watching stuff. I was a lurker for about a month, and then I got the gumption to post some stuff, and I got just barely enough views and enough followers to go live one night. So I started going live a little bit and got my feet wet a little bit with that. And then I thought, what I'm doing is really not hitting with people. And there's a lot of doctors on TikTok who share their knowledge and things that they're special with. You know, Dr.
Mhm.
Jennifer Lincoln, who's an OBGYN, was a particular example of spreading GYN health and sexual health for young women. So I thought, hey, you know, the gay community doesn't have a voice when it comes to sexual health. It doesn't have a voice when it comes to sex education.
Yes.
Why don't I do a video about butt stuff and how to do it right, how to prepare for it, how to lubricate for it, and how to relax for it. So I made 2 videos, butt stuff 1 and 2, and I posted them on TikTok. And I thought, okay, let's see how this goes. The first comment was from a housewife in Iowa, and she went off on me about how dare I post a video about butt stuff on a children's app. This is, you know, ridiculous. I ought to be ashamed of myself. And I thought in that moment, okay, I can either take this down and forget about the whole thing, or I can just block her and see what happens. So I blocked her. And the next morning, you know, I turned off my phone, and the next morning I picked up my phone and looked at my TikTok and had 50,000 new followers.
Wow.
And I thought, whoa, I've hit a nerve here.
Yeah.
People want to know about this. And I thought initially, hey, this is all the gay guys, right? All the gay men want to know about butt stuff. You know, I hit all the gay guys. I looked at my demographics, and it was 75% women. So it made me realize, hey, you know what? Everybody's got a butt.
Yeah.
It's not just gay guys who are into butt stuff. So let's explore this. You know, I really did want to connect more with the gay community. So I started focusing more of my information towards sexual health, prevention, stuff that we don't hear about. I never was taught gay sex education. I was never taught really even good sex education to begin with. I grew up in the public school system in South Carolina, and probably the poorest county in South Carolina.
Wow.
And it just wasn't a thing. So, and I knew there were others like me out there who never really got that stuff. So I started aiming my stuff more towards the gay community. The follower count started building. I got noticed by Sean T, which blew me away because I'm such a huge fan.
Yes.
And he said, dude, I'm a huge fan of yours. Can you come on my Wine Night After Dark, which is an uncensored event that I do for my subscribers? And I did, and people absolutely went crazy over it. They loved it. So I thought, wow, this is a thing. I should, you know, start expanding more. I opened up an Instagram because I think I can, on Instagram, I tend to connect with people better. I can answer DMs a lot faster. And I can be a little less censored on Instagram than I can on TikTok. I still have to be pretty censored, but not nearly as bad as I have to be on TikTok. And things just kind of took off. And I never really realized how big a deal it was until my husband and I went on vacation last year to Provincetown to Bear Week. And I stepped off that ferry, and every 5 feet, people were, you know, wanting pictures with me or saying hello or that they love my videos. The funniest thing that happened was I was crossing the dunes in Provincetown where the guys kind of do their thing, you know, and 2 guys were going at it. And right in the middle of it, they just stopped and looked up at me as I was crossing and said, "Oh my God, we love your videos." Nice. And I said, "Oh, that's okay. You just calm down. You carry on, boys. You're fine." So that really, you know, it told me, hey, listen, people out there are really connecting with you. They know who you are. They want more of this stuff.
Yep. People
told me how much it meant to them. So, you know, I've done a bunch of podcasts. I've been in some magazines. I do a lot of lives. I work with several companies. I was able to partner with Scruff, which we can talk a little bit later, to be their sexual health advisor. And that was really huge for me. And I partnered with one of my favorite lube companies as well, which we'll talk about later as well. So there's a lot going on. There's, you know, it seems to keep growing every day, and it's exciting. My goal out of this whole thing is now to become like the gay Dr. Ruth, just to be noticed by the right person, so that I'm able to have a bigger platform to get this information out to people who need it, because it's valuable information.
Right. This conversation has me very giddy. Me being an adult entertainer,
sure.
Sex obviously is a big part of my career.
Absolutely.
And I get invited to have these types of conversations as well. And I mean, and we're going to talk about HIV and PrEP, and other way, U equals U, all of those things. But usually when I have when I'm invited to have these conversations, it's usually on that level, but I like to go further than just talking about that, because sexual health is an important part of our identities as human beings. We all have, well, almost all of us have sex.
Right.
And we want to do it properly. We want to be healthy. Most of us want to be healthy, and we want to enjoy ourselves. So
Right.
again, this conversation here for me is giddy because people know what to expect when they see Kevyn or Venom, but to have a healthcare provider who knows more than just the action of it, but like the science and the medicine behind
Sure. Yeah.
how to properly do it. And I want to jump in
Sure.
because you are that butt stuff doctor on
Yeah.
social media. Before I do that, did you expect that you would get viral like this, and has that overtaken your life?
You know, it's required a lot of balance in life, because I got really addicted to it initially. It's kind of like a slot machine, like Vegas.
Wow.
Like, you know, you keep pulling the lever and pulling the lever, and just when you're about to give up, you hit big, and it makes you want to do it more.
Yeah.
And you know, I would do a video, it would get 10,000 views, and I'd be like, and then I'd do another video, it'd get like 15,000 views, and be like, and then I'd do another video and have 1 million views, and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is good. This is good. I need to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So it does get addictive. It does cut into a lot of time. Now I'm back at work full time, so my ability to make videos has definitely decreased. You know, I have 2 kids, I have a husband, I have 3 dogs, I have a full-time job, and I have a massive social media platform of over 250,000 people that I have to deal with as well. And I don't want to lose that. And the thing with social media is, as soon as you become silent, you become irrelevant. So it's important to balance all of those things. Luckily, my husband is very supportive. My kids are at that age where they don't care. You know, I don't exist except to drive them or to give them money or to get them food or something like that right now. So they've been really cool about it. And I'm a partner in my own company as far as the business goes, as far as being a doctor. So I'm not employed by anybody, so I don't have to worry about any sort of image problems or anything like that. So I'm in charge of my own deal. So that frees me up a little bit.
Yeah, that's not necessarily on topic, but I do have that conversation with a lot of people about being able to have that freedom to move and not have that person over top. You say, well, that's going to mess up our image. So I'm really happy for you that you are able to create your brand the way you want to, and it's reaching so many people. Did you expect that it would go as viral when you first started?
I had no idea it would happen like this. I had no idea, but I am so thankful that it has, because it's definitely reached a lot of people who needed information. You mentioned a lot of things earlier in our previous conversation that meant a lot to you. And, you know, people, when someone comes to you behind the scenes and says, hey, what you told me changed my life.
Yes.
That touches me. That touches me very deeply. And, or, you know, I had a guy who sent me a photo of his hand. He goes, you know, I have this rash on my hand. What's going on? And I was like, the only time that I'm aware that you get a rash on your palm of your hand is syphilis. So you need to go to the hospital right now. You know, you need to go to the doctor's office right now and get checked. And he goes, well, I've lost like 35 pounds. I have this rash. And I'm like, oh my goodness, something bad is going, go get checked. So he went and he got checked, and they just did an x-ray and didn't see anything. I said, no, tell him to run the syphilis test. Tell him to run the HIV test. And he did. And they ended up both being positive. Wow. So he's like, wow, I probably would have missed this for another couple of weeks if I hadn't just asked you what's going on here. It's really meaningful. I think I told you as well earlier that, you know, I've had people in countries where it's illegal to have gay sex.
Right.
You can be executed even in some countries. And when those people come to me behind the scenes, they can't follow me. They can't even like my videos, but they can direct message me without being caught and ask me questions. And to be able to help people like that who need me, is something I never expected. It really is touching.
So before we started the broadcast, we were talking about situations where a person say, I can't talk about it because my life will be put at risk if I even mention it. Or I think somewhere I saw in one of your previous interviews, he was like, well, I can't go to get tested because if it pops up that I have anal STI, they're going to know that I was playing back there. Like, that's very deep for me to hear, because like we're so used to over here in the United States, oh, I'm just going to go to the clinic, I'm going to go to urgent care, go to the emergency room,
Right.
It's taken care of, and you don't think twice about it, except when you're in another country and it's illegal to have same gender sex.
Right.
So yeah, like how often do you get messages like that, and how do you deal with that, and especially in situations where the person may be a minor?
Well, I'm always very careful with the minor thing because I don't want to get in any sort of trouble. So
Right.
The last thing I want to do is to damage my my career, or put my family at risk or anything like that. So I'm always very careful with the minor line, but I always ask an age, and if there is an issue where someone is underage, I redirect them to a resource that would be able to help them at that appropriate age. Now, when it comes to people of age, there's a lot of questions that I'm able to answer, like that just little simple things you wouldn't even believe that changes people's life. Like this one guy from Saudi Arabia messaged me and said, hey, listen, I've got this thing on my anus, and if it turns out to be an STI, I'll be executed.
Right.
But I don't know what it is. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, here, just send me a vanishing picture on my Instagram, and I won't save it or anything. I'll look at it and I'll give you an opinion, about what I think that is. And I'd look at it and be, oh, that's just a hemorrhoid. And to be able to take somebody's like that kind of pressure of, their impending death, their shoulders, it's pretty amazing. So those situations, they do pop up. They pop up about twice a month. But definitely do pop up. And, there are people from all over the world who ask me questions: India, Malaysia, Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia. So it's kind of like a back channel to give people information that they need that they otherwise wouldn't get.
That's awesome. Could you just explain to me what a gastroenterologist? And I've been struggling to say this.
Right though earlier, gastroenterologists are doctors of the digestive tract. So anything from the mouth down to the anus, so we're talking esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum. We do pancreas, liver, gallbladder, that kind of stuff. Anything in the biliary tract. So I spend a lot of my time doing colonoscopies and endoscopies, looking for ulcers and cancer and polyps and preventing cancers, and looking at why people are bleeding, or why people have pain, or why people have diarrhea. So a lot of my medical practice is focused on that area. So what I did was I combined all my knowledge from being trained in gastroenterology and internal medicine. You have to be an internal medicine specialist first before you're a GI specialist. I combined all that with my experience as a gay man, so that I could pull all that together to bring the sexual technique tips to people, but also the sexual health and wellness information that's necessary.
So I want to go back a little bit. To what you were saying about the one person who had the rash on their hand, and they went to the doctor and like they didn't do anything about it. I found that working in infectious disease, that there are tons and tons of doctors, medical providers who are completely oblivious to STIs, what people who are same gender loving go through when it comes down to our sexual health. Definitely. One thing that you say a lot is test where you play. Can you go into detail about that for me?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really important. So testing where you play means that if you perform oral sex, you should get your throat swabbed for gonorrhea and chlamydia, because if you're infected there, it might not show up in your urine test. So most people think of a standard gonorrhea and chlamydia test as just a urine test. So it used to be that we would swab the penis, but luckily, because that was painful, luckily
I had that one time. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this?
Yeah. Luckily that's evolved to a urine test now. So it's much easier. But a lot of people just stop at that, because I think especially heterosexual doctors think, oh, well, they don't even think about where we put things. So if you perform oral sex, you need your throat swabbed. If you put something in your butt, you need your butt swabbed. Right. So I've seen people with gonorrhea and chlamydia infections in their throat or their butts that would have never been caught on their urine test because their urine test was negative. And when you miss that sort of infection in the throat or the butt, it's just going to propagate through the community and spread to more and more and more people because people don't know that they're infected. So they give oral sex or they, are bottoms for people and don't realize that they're going to pass something on. Right. So getting checked where you play means swabs for your throat, for your butt. If you use either of those things, if you're just using your penis or your vagina, the urine test is fine. Blood tests will detect your syphilis, herpes, hepatitis A, B, and C, HIV, all those sorts of things. So you need to do everything based on where you play. And again, this is when you're not in a monogamous relationship with someone who's being monogamous with you. So if you're not monogamous and you're playing it all, especially if you don't play with condoms, and less people are playing with condoms these days. And I don't judge that. I just give people the information that they need to know to get tested so that you nip those infections in the bud so that they don't spread to other people.
I'm glad you mentioned that because like getting tested, getting treated, those things can be looked at as taking care of something that's already happened. Are there any ways that a person can protect themselves? Because again, everyone's not using condoms, but what are other ways that people could possibly protect themselves when engaging in whether it's anal or vaginal intercourse?
So some things that I think are important to know about. When it comes to our community, there are certain things that pass in our community a little bit more frequently than others. So hepatitis A and B hepatitis A is spread fecal orally. So if you rim, then you're at risk for hepatitis A if the person is infected and you don't have antibodies for it. And as well, hepatitis B is spread just like HIV through blood and body fluids. Okay. So hepatitis A and B vaccines are available and are usually given at birth now. So, or a very young age. And then there's usually a booster as you go into college or high school. So hepatitis A and B, a new vaccine that's sent, wasn't available when I was a kid is HPV. So we have the HPV virus that causes warts, anal warts, genital warts, is completely preventable with the HPV vaccine. There are 3 common serotypes that can lead to cancer. And initially it was given to young girls to prevent cervical cancer because cervical cancer is HPV related, but anal cancer is also HPV related. And if you're HIV positive and you also have HPV in your anal canal, there's a 70 times increased risk of anal cancer compared to someone who is not HIV positive. So it's really crucial for people to be aware of that HPV vaccine. It used to be just available to young girls, and they started giving it to young boys. Then it went up to age 26, and now there's an indication up to age 45 to get HPV vaccine if you're at risk. So, HPV vaccines are another way you can prevent things. Next,
I want to stop you real quick before we go too far, because question just comes in my head. And excuse my ignorance. What makes a person living with HIV that much more at risk for HPV?
It's not that you're more at risk for it. It's just that if you have both viruses at the same time, there's something that amplifies the risk of anal cancer.
Got it.
If you have it in your anus. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's something that, so if you have HPV and you have HIV, it's important for you to get anal pap smears done, just like women get cervical pap smears. It's important if those pap smears show precancerous cells to get them treated through high resolution anoscopy. There's a new study called the Anchor study out of UCSF that has shown a dramatic reduction in anal cancer in HIV positive men who have HPV when those lesions are treated. So, stuff that's not available every single place in America, but definitely in bigger cities, you can get this stuff done. Okay. So that's HPV. And then the next thing I wanted to remind people about, because there is an outbreak right now in Florida of meningococcal meningitis.
Yes.
Meningococcal meningitis is, the bacteria is Neisseria meningitidis, and gonorrhea's bacteria is Neisseria gonorrhea. So this Neisseria meningitidis bacteria is easily spread from mouth to mouth. And, you know how we are.
Yes.
We like to put our mouths on things. If we share drinks, or we kiss, or we're in a bar, or we're in a steam room, or we're in a bathhouse, or wherever, it tends to cluster really and spread really rapidly among gay men because of that, and bi men because of that, the way we play. So by getting the meningitis vaccine, you can prevent an infection, and this meningitis can kill 15 to 20% of those infected with it. So it's a real serious thing. So I think it's important to get that meningitis vaccine. I just got my shot yesterday to boost myself, because there was an outbreak in like New York in like 2000, mid 2015, 16ish, and in LA. I think that's when I got my vaccine, because I didn't want to put myself at risk, and it wears off after about 5 years. So I went ahead and got my booster yesterday. But another interesting thing about prevention, there are some studies that show that the meningitis vaccine, at least the MENB vaccine, may ward off gonorrhea infections. There's a study out of New Zealand that people who got the meningitis vaccine had a dramatic reduction in gonorrhea rates. So
that's cool.
Yeah, and I have friends who live down there who said, yeah, like I got this meningitis vaccine. I didn't get gonorrhea for like 4 years. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That is, so it's interesting, because in my career, it's a lot of raw sex, and you come in contact with a lot of people, and there's no real surefire way to know what another person's health is like. They can say something and it may not be true, or they could be telling the truth or not say anything at all. So I think, like, to cover your bases, like getting those vaccinations, and you and I were going to talk about PrEP and PEP as well. These are other ways to protect yourself. So do you care to get into the, and we were talking about doxycycline as well, which
So we're going to cover all this stuff. I think that's really important. So let's talk about if you're HIV positive. If you're HIV positive, get or you think you might be, get tested, get treated, get to undetectable. When you're undetectable for HIV, that means that there's not enough virus in your bloodstream to be even detected by standard laboratory testing. And science has proven, and we're talking some heavy duty studies have proven, that a person cannot pass HIV through sex when they're undetectable on their viral load. And I tell you, and I tell the world, people who are HIV positive are usually more in tune with their bodies. They're in tune with their medications, because they want to stay healthy. They want to stay alive. They want to make sure that they do the right thing. So there's a lot of misinformation about people saying, oh, what if someone's lying about their undetectable status and they're really HIV positive, but they're not undetectable. I'm like, people also lie about their HIV. They tell you they're negative and they've never even been tested before. So you have to trust certain amounts of information for people anyway. Ultimately, your own protection is your responsibility, no matter who you sleep with.
Absolutely.
But one of the big things that bothers me about our community is how HIV positive men are discriminated against when it comes to sex, especially on apps. You tell somebody you're HIV positive and people get blocked immediately. Have you faced anything like that, being an HIV positive man?
So it's interesting. Story time. I started my career in 2005 as Venom. And I was working with a company, and they gave me the freedom one day to say, hey, go online, see if it's somebody that you want to work with. And I was so young, I was uneducated. And the guy, he disclosed his status to me. I didn't just shut him off, but I was uneducated and I was afraid. So I just said, okay, no, I'm not going to work with you. Even though everything we did was protected, I just was not educated. But then once I found out that I was HIV positive and I got into care and got to be undetectable, obviously through that I became more educated, and then started working with universities with their HIV research, with prevention and therapy. So my sensitivity to some of the discrimination started to go away. But like on dating apps, let's start there. There was so much stigma and ignorance there. And it kind of like went back to when the guy told me that he was positive. It's like, okay, is someone being honest with you, being upfront? They're protecting themselves. They're trying to protect you. And it's the ignorance that kills. There was a question that I wrote down that I'm going to bring up to you after I get finished making my statement. Now on any app that I'm on, That's the first, like, it's not the first thing, but it's in the app. I'm actually grateful that the apps give you the option to say, hey, I'm positive, I'm undetectable, I'm negative, because the hardest thing to do is to connect with somebody. And especially if you want to be responsible and you get there in the bedroom and it's starting to get heated and they say, wait, before we get started, I'm positive. And like, that's scary all in itself, because you don't know how the other person's going to respond. You just killed the whole mood. So for me now, it's like, before you even get a chance to block me, it's on my page. I find myself blocking other people if they didn't take the time to read my profile. But so my question to you is, how does education influence our sexual health?
Well, I think it's in, like you mentioned before, you had the opportunity to be with this person and you didn't take it because of their HIV status. And if you had known differently, you may have done something differently. I think that there are a lot of people who are HIV positive, who are amazing people who would make the best partners in the world, and they're shut out by people and they don't even get a chance from some people. So people are really missing out on the potential to have an amazing relationship with an amazing person. They're just completely shutting down on that one stupid little fact that really doesn't even matter anymore with the way treatment is these days. So, I think it affects how we make life choices. It affects how we take care of ourselves. I think being armed with the information that you need to know to take care of yourself prevents a lot of problems down the line. Yes. So like if you get vaccinated for these things, if you go on PrEP, which we'll talk about next, to prevent HIV if you're negative, or if you mess up and you're not on PrEP and you're not sure, and we'll talk about PEP, but there's a rescue medication in case you do mess up and you're not on PrEP. There's a lot of things that you can do to alter your future just with education. Yes.
And when we get to PEP, I want to get a little further into the regimen, some of the things that people should know, like the time frame it is to get. But I want to talk about PrEP because it's pre-exposure prophylaxis.
Right.
So we can talk about PrEP, then we'll talk about post-exposure prophylaxis, which is PEP. So you're the doctor, so I'll let you go first.
Sure. Yeah. So PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis. That means you take a pill ahead of time to prevent an infection from happening. So it first started with Truvada. Truvada was the first medication taken originally on a daily basis to prevent HIV infection. After about a week of taking it, there's enough level in your bloodstream to be able to have sex with someone else, even without a condom, and not get HIV. It's 99% plus effective at preventing HIV. Obviously, the more religiously you take your medication and adhere to your regimen, the better. Sadly, I'm working with a local foundation here in San Diego who just told me that this past week they're having a rash of people who are testing positive, who were on PrEP at one point, but just got lackadaisical about it and stopped taking it. Or
I was going to, sorry to interrupt, but while you were talking about PrEP, I've heard of situations where a person said, well, I was on PrEP. How did I become positive? How could that happen?
Well, if they didn't take it properly, if they didn't take it on a daily basis, that's the main one right there. If they were in a situation where the person had a very, very, very high viral load, and they didn't take, say in a 7-day week, they only took 3 pills, then that would put them more.
It sounds weird or taboo, but I've heard people say, "Oh, I'm about to have sex. Let me take my PrEP for the weekend."
That's another way to take PrEP, and we'll talk about that too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then you can debunk something for me, because to me, I thought that was kind of crazy, and you can tell me if it is or if it isn't. Because again, you want to have a certain level of the medication in your system, so that way, if you did come in contact with it, there's a barrier. So if a person only takes PrEP like the day of, can they take it like the day before, a couple of days before? How does that work?
Absolutely. There is a method. It's less effective than daily PrEP. So daily PrEP, Truvada is 99% plus effective at preventing HIV. Descovy is the same way. Descovy is a lower dose medication because when you go on PrEP, your doctor tests you for HIV to make sure you're negative first.
Mm-hmm.
They also do kidney function because your kidney function can be altered with Truvada. It can be adversely affected so that you have less kidney function. So they monitor your kidney function very carefully every 3 months while you're on PrEP as part of your testing. And there's also some evidence of some osteoporosis or bone density changes that can happen over time. The lower dose Descovy has less of the kidney dysfunction and less of the osteoporosis or bone density problems. So those are both the daily regimens. So there is a way to take PrEP, the Truvada, not the Descovy. It hasn't been studied in that yet. Called 211. 211 is a method that is used frequently in Europe and in Australia and other places and actually a lot of people here use it, where you take 2 pills of Truvada or its generic equivalent within 2 to 24 hours prior to your contact.
Yeah.
So if you have a date tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, if you take it tonight at 8, 2 pills tonight at 8 o'clock, and then 1 pill for 24 hours after that pill, until you've taken at least 2 pills after your encounters. So if you only have sex once, you can only end up taking 4 pills rather than 31 or 30. Wow. And it's been shown to be 97% effective at preventing HIV. Again, It's not 100%. And it's when someone says, "Oh, I was taking PrEP, but it didn't, I still got HIV," that shows you that the percentage goes down with time. Unless you take it. So it is a very effective way. It's slightly less effective than daily Truvada. And there are caveats about it. So if you're someone who can plan for sex, who is very anal about the regimen and following, okay, I'm going to definitely take the second pill 24 hours after, the third pill 24 hours after that, I take those first pills and then take the other one. But you'll be fine. But a lot of people forget that, or like, oh, oops, careless people, this is not for. You have to be really on top of your game. Yeah. It takes away the spontaneity of sex, though. So you can't just be like at the gym and be like, okay, I'm in the steam room and boom, no, that's not how this is going to work. So the daily PrEP gives you the spontaneity of being able to do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it. Right. Other people, the other thing to be aware of is that the 211 method isn't as effective for people with a vagina because it doesn't concentrate in the tissues properly to be as effective enough as you need for prevention from that standpoint. So I warn against that. On my Instagram, there's a whole list of do's and don'ts that I got from the San Francisco AIDS Foundation at sfaf.org that you can learn all about 211 and the do's and don'ts. So check that website out as well. It's got a lot of great information about 211. The other exciting thing, though, is there's a new HIV treatment called Cavanova, or
bring that up.
Yeah, it's every other month injections. So it's actually being used now for PrEP. So you can take an injection once every 2 months, and that's all you need. And the great thing about this is it's over 99% effective. It's even better than Truvada, actually, statistically, because people aren't going to forget a pill.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's in your system. You don't have to worry about missing a pill. So
I told you I worked in research.
Yeah.
And that was, so we did the Cabotegravir study for maybe 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing. People would come in, they would get their Cabotegravir was the medication that we were studying. And they would get their shot once every 2 months. We saw them every month. We did like just a follow-up in between their shots. And so, and it's been proven to be pretty effective. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. So people use it now as their HIV regimen, as their PrEP regimen. It's obviously, because it's a new medication, it's harder to get as your PrEP, because a lot of insurance companies are already contracted with the pills. They want
for their financial interest to be able to just have to pay for the pills.
Right.
But I talked to my local group in San Diego yesterday who provides PEP and PrEP and STI testing. And they said, if you contact us with your prescription needs, there's some loopholes that we can figure out to try to get you the cabotegravir. So that's exciting.
Yes.
So we've talked about PrEP. PrEP, the number one thing I want to make sure that people realize is it only prevents HIV. It doesn't prevent any of those other things. Right. So, condoms are still going to be your best bet as far as protecting yourself against all STIs. If you're not going to use condoms, and I'm a realist about that, I realize a lot of people aren't these days. And obviously in your industry, you're going to lose followers, you're going to lose interest if you use condoms.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. It's always important to keep that in mind that this is only preventing HIV.
Right.
So another thing I wanted to talk about though, you're out on a Friday night, you get hammered, you're not on PrEP, you meet some guy at the bar, you take him home, he plows you and you don't use a condom. And then he leaves and you have no idea what his HIV status is.
Barely his name.
Or if he's detectable, right, or whatever, right? So if you're unsure of your partner's viral load, if you're unsure of in a situation like where you're assaulted, that's another way it can come up. If you use protection, but your protection breaks in the middle of things, another way that people could potentially get infected. So there's something called post-exposure prophylaxis. That means you've already been exposed, but within 72 hours, preferably within 24 hours. The closer you get to the exposure event with treatment, the better off your chance of avoiding infection will be. Right. You can take something called post-exposure prophylaxis. It's basically the same medications in PrEP plus one other medication. So just taking PrEP alone is not enough. If this happens, if you're not on PrEP. So you have to take this regimen religiously for 28 days. And there's definitely a major reduction in the seropositivity rate to HIV afterwards if you do this regimen. So it's critical. If you do this, it's not something that you want to use as your method of prevention.
Right.
But if you mess up, make sure that you get to an urgent care or your local STI center or your doctor or even the emergency room if you have to get this in you within 72 hours.
Let me just stop to say thank you for that, because I wonder how it is that in 2022, we still get a lot of new infections.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we have so many tools now that could help us to prevent that from happening. So I'm glad that you gave voice to that here on this show. And we were talking about U equals U, which means undetectable equals undetectable. I mean, untransmittable. But also using treatment as prevention is another term that we're using. Right. And that's for those of us who are living with HIV, to make sure that we remain undetectable, so that way we're not putting anyone else at risk. So I just wanted to make sure I threw that term out there for everyone. Yeah,
treatment as prevention. Whenever you see that on the apps, it means that someone is taking their HIV medicines and they're undetectable to be able to prevent passing an infection to anyone else, and they won't pass an infection if they're undetectable. So that's the important thing.
So I want to try to get this, because we've been talking for like 45 minutes almost, and the hour's almost up. We can't skip over this is all good stuff, but the juicy stuff that everyone wants to know. How do you prep for anal pleasure? Let's start with that. I have three points: preparing, lubricating, and relaxing.
Absolutely. So
I got that from you.
Number one, with preparing, the biggest thing that helps people is fiber. Not everybody's responsible to fiber, but fiber supplements are game changers when it comes to preparing for butt stuff. Yeah. So if you take fiber supplements daily, it acts as like a magnet to all the residue in your colon, so that when you go to the bathroom and everything exits out, when you go to douche or prepare for sex, you don't really have to use that much water or to clean out. Yes. Because most of the material is is already bulked up and passed. So the way that you clean out, if you have to clean out, and most people do, let's be realistic. A lot of people on TikTok and Instagram say, "Oh, you shouldn't douche, or you don't need to douche." Have you ever taken a 9-inch penis? No, I don't think so. So, when it comes to douching, it's important to use plenty of lubrication on the tip of whatever you use to insert into yourself. You can use anything from a shower shot, which attaches to your shower, which is kind of a high volume thing. So make sure that you turn the water pressure down low and make sure that the temperature is lukewarm and not too hot and not too cold. Okay. You can use a bulb syringe. You can use a douche bulb that you can buy from online or an adult store. You can use even an Enema kit, but just dump out the Enema solution and rinse out the bottle and just use warm water. You squirt the contents of the bottle into your butt. You hold it for 20 to 30 seconds. You release. You repeat until the water becomes clear. And then once the water is clear, get up and shake it around a little bit and sit back down, because a lot of times you think you got all of it out, but you really don't. There is something called the Recto Sigmoid curve, which is a big curve that happens deep up inside your rectum, where water can flow over and get trapped. So you can be in the middle of things and think you're clear, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, that comes out. I think you showed a TikTok about that of mine earlier.
I did. And there was something else that you said in another interview about that. When people say, "Oh, I'm reaching a second hole."
Yeah, that's what the second hole is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That recto sigmoid junction was about 8 to 10 inches up in there. So, and that's more into the more extreme
playing. Yeah.
When it comes to preparation, I think water is probably okay. If you're traveling and you're in an exotic country like Mexico or somewhere in Southeast Asia, you don't want to use the local water. You want to probably use bottled water, just to avoid sort of any sort of local infections that might be in the water. Yes. People get freaked out about if they're going to destroy their flora. I tell them not to worry about the flora. That the next poop you take is going to probably replace that flora anyway. So don't get too freaked out about that unless your bowel habits start changing. Then you're probably douching too much. So we talked about douching. The next thing is lubrication.
Before we get off the douching real quick, because one day I was watching RuPaul's Drag Race, and RuPaul was sitting on the panel having the best laugh of her life, talking about a coffee enema.
Oh, sure.
What is that?
Coffee enemas are, I don't think that there's really anything to it, but some people use coffee as an enema. I had one drag queen tell me they use green tea and they get a zen sensation when they do it. But I'm like, whatever, Some people use saline, isotonic saline. That stuff isn't going to damage your system, but I don't think it's really going to do anything for you. Okay. I live on the border of Tijuana and San Diego, and a lot of people go down to Mexico and have all these exotic cancer treatments with coffee enemas, and it does nothing. So,
that's something cute to say. I did.
Yeah, something cute to say. I think it can't hurt you, so why not? And then lubrication is important. Your anus is a very tight circle. It is very delicate. If you go in too quickly, you can tear the lining, and that's called a fissure. Very painful, and it can put you out of commission for months. You can even have to have surgery if it doesn't heal right. So lubrication. I like silicone-based lubes for anal play. Water-based lubes are fine as well. If you're going to use toys, water-based is better. Water-based and silicone-based lubes are condom safe. Coconut oil, Vaseline, and baby oil are not safe with condoms. They will tear apart a condom. So don't use those with condoms, because that will break your condom.
So I have something else that I was told a while ago is if I'm having unprotected sex and I use Vaseline, that puts a coat over my penis. So that way, if there was anything, I kind of am protected. Is that a myth, or is there fact to that?
Well, I mean, there is a certain degree of truth to that. And the same thing happens with the silicone-based lube as well. It kind of acts like a water barrier.
Okay.
Over the skin, so that things don't stick to it.
Okay.
So I'm, there obviously haven't been any studies that show whether or not there's a scientific decrease or increase in infections based on that. But yeah, I can see how that can potentially help. So lubrication is key. I happen to work with gun oil. If people like gun oil or want to try gun oil, I have an offer code called THEDOC, the doc, that gives you 30% off of gun oil products. And that's my favorite lube. I've been using it for 15 years, and the fact that I get to work with them now is awesome. I prefer gun oil, but use whatever makes you happy. Experiment and see what works. Some people who have a lot of tightness down there even use a CBD based lubricant, and it helps relax the anus as well. And that's at gunoil.com. The doc
we will add that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing is relaxation. Your anus is made out of muscle. The external muscle is the external sphincter, and that's made out of skeletal muscle. The internal is made out of smooth muscle. You can control with your brain the external muscle. You can't control the internal muscle because that's made out of smooth muscle. So there's something that I call the butt clock, which helps people relax that tiny little hole to go from this to this. So what you do is you insert your finger in, and I'm just going to expand that circle a little bit more, and you press over laterally, say like right there to 9 o'clock, and hold. Don't press. You don't want to press so hard that you hurt the person, but you want to just put firm pressure there for about 30 seconds or so, and then you switch to 3 o'clock. You go down to 6 o'clock or up to 12 o'clock. You do that in 30-second cycles, and it kind of just loosens them up. You can use it as foreplay, and that tiny little circle starts expanding. Mm-hmm. So that's really important. As far as bottoming goes, I think if you're a tight bottom or a new bottom, it's important to start off on top. That way you control how fast things go in, and you get comfortable. You find the right position, the right angle. Everybody's angles are different. Some penises curve up, some curve to the side, some curve down, some are straight. So get on, and your own curves may be different too. So get on it, slide slowly down until you get it all the way in. So lubricant breathing is important as well. Nice calm breaths, kind of just relax your whole body, relax that area as well.
I laugh at that because like a lot of times in the beginning of sex, I actually start meditating.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for sure. It really relaxes things back there as well. People ask about poppers and why and how they work.
Yes.
Poppers are actually interesting because when they're amyl nitrite based, when you inhale them, and I don't recommend poppers, but I'm just telling you how they work. Mm-hmm. The reason a lot of gay guys use them is you inhale it, it dilates smooth muscle. So your internal anal sphincter is made out of smooth muscle. So when you inhale that, it relaxes that. So that's able to open up a little bit more. Also opens the vagina more. The other thing though, is it opens up your blood vessels more because they're made out of smooth muscle. And so you get these intense headaches. You can get dizzy, you can drop your blood pressure. And if you take it with Viagra or Cialis or other drugs, it can really drop your blood pressure. You put you in trouble. I've seen, you don't want to use it in a steam room or sauna because it can really make you drop pretty fast. And I've seen people die in bathhouses. I haven't seen it, but I've had friends who said, I was in Madrid and this guy died in the sauna because he was sniffing poppers left and right.
Wow.
So, I know people are going to use them with caution. So, and once you get relaxed at the bottom, the top can take over, or you can stay on top and be in control, which is hot too.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are my techniques about bottoming, especially tight bottoming, that have really been game changers for a lot of people, especially that whole butt clock thing. People, straight women, bi men, gay men have all texted me on Instagram and said, "Oh my God, you've changed my life. Thank you so much. Now I see what this is all about."
Yes. So I've started seeing a lot more heterosexual men doing anal play with their girlfriends or on their own.
Yeah.
So this information is valuable to everybody.
Right. And that's another thing that I wanted to, and everybody's got a butt, and And especially with men, our prostate gland is located. And I did a video about this today about where to find the male G spot or P spot on my Instagram. So the prostate is located between the rectum and the penis anatomically. And so if your partner is bent over in front of you, it's inside the rectum about 2 inches or 4 to 5 centimeters and down at 6 o'clock. So that's where they're going to, if they're bent over in front of you. So it's only a couple of inches in. So you don't have to have a massive penis to get in there and hit that prostate gland. And so, obviously if you're sticking your finger in somebody's butt, you want to make sure your fingernails are short. You don't want to rip or tear anybody. If they're facing you and they're on their back, it's up at 12 o'clock.
Yes.
So, I think the first time someone found my reset button while they were giving me oral pleasure was I think I wanted to go out and buy them a ring, because it was just like I floated to the moon. There is such intense pleasure back there, and I think that a lot of straight guys, a lot of strict tops miss out on that. And it's
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So I have another show that I do on Sunday nights called The Great Mind Show with one of my best friends, Tony Greatness, who is a top. And I've been telling him, listen, you don't know what you're missing out on. I'm versatile, but I'm telling you, my partner and I were saying, you know what? I can end wars and create peace on earth because people have so much tension and because they don't know how to relieve themselves. If you learn where that is and how to please yourself, I think that will cause a lot of people to relax a lot more.
Absolutely, for sure. So so that's really, and that's why a lot of men are starting, straight men and are starting to play more back there. A lot of women are pegging their men because it's hot. It feels great, So there's no sexuality to butt play. It doesn't make you gay. It doesn't make you feminine. It doesn't make you masculine. There's no gender role. There's no femininity or masculinity to it. It just feels great. So I encourage everybody to explore that area.
So there are two last things I want to touch on, and they tie together. So I'm gonna just tell you what the two things are, then you can just flow with it. The first thing is tips for tops, and then in some other videos you were talking about testosterone levels and how they affect performance as well, or like your sexual health. So tips for tops and then testosterone.
Yeah, tips for tops. So when it comes to topping, one of the most frustrating things about being a top is that you have to have a really firm erection to be able to penetrate somebody usually. It requires us, and especially when, less so in vaginal penetration, but when you're, going anal, that muscle back there is so tight that you have to really be able to have a firm erection. So if you're not naturally able to get it erect that easily, then it can be frustrating. But there are methods that you can use. There's, the Cialises, the Viagras. There's, you can use a C-ring to help provide blood flow to the area. There's all kinds of situations that there's even injectables now that you can use to make sure that you stay rock hard. And I think a lot of the industry is probably using that. I know there's some prominent guys who are a little older, who are pretty famous, who use the trimixes very effectively. And so getting a firm enough erection, going slow, communicating with the bottom, making sure that the bottom is pleased. Start off tease there's a lot of external sensation that happens back there. Tease a little bit, blow on it, use your tongue. Actually, it's really funny. I did a video for a guy who has a skincare line called Leather Daddy Skin Company, and he has a product called Tasty Hole that is a scrub that leaves an aftertaste. The flavors are like glazed donut hole and peach ring and cherry gobbler. So you can even play like that. You can do a little scrub in the shower before you play, and you can enjoy the taste. If you don't like the original recipe, I say. And then using the butt clock technique to allow the anus to relax, going slow, waiting until the bottom is completely relaxed until you can really start going for it. Those first couple of minutes for a bottom are pretty harrowing for sometimes. So if you let them relax, then it will be a great experience. If you cause any sort of pain or tearing, you're going to end your session immediately. So you're going to want to make sure you go slow, use lots of great lube, reapply the lube. All those things are really important. And keep in mind as well, this is where poop comes out. So sometimes shit happens. Or
Yes.
poop happens. Excuse me.
Shit happens.
Sometimes things happen back there. So don't, learn to deal with that. If it's really bad, have them, clean off and maybe go rinse out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes all you have to do is wipe off a little bit and keep going. So, and be respectful of a bottom. Bottoms do a lot of work to make this happen for you. So those are important things. You mentioned the other thing was testosterone levels.
Yes.
Testosterone is our male hormone. It affects our sexual function. It affects our sexual arousal and our interest in sex. It can affect your energy levels, your body weight. So you can feel, if you have a low testosterone, you can feel not horny. You can get fat. You can feel tired. It's hard to put on muscle if you go to the gym, that sort of thing. And as we get older, that level starts dropping. But if you have a level that's lower than it should be, you can get replacement testosterone. I'm not talking about the stuff to make you jacked up like a bodybuilder, but you can get a replacement level of testosterone to build your levels back up so that you can function like you previously did. So, and that's a healthy thing to do. So testosterone levels are important. The last thing I want to mention for men as well is prostate health. Make sure you get your prostate checked. Prostate cancer happens in men very frequently. It strikes African-American men a lot younger. So make sure that you get your prostate evaluation with your doctor. Usually about age 40, earlier if you have a family history of prostate cancer. Colon cancer is the other thing. It hits African-American men younger than other people as well. But the general age for everyone is 45 for screening purposes for colon cancer. Earlier if you have a family history.
Right. So for people with family history, or for the African-American community where we are at risk at early ages, which age do you recommend that we go get checked out?
Well, the African-American screening age it used to be 45 and everyone else was 50. Everyone is now at 45 because of the benefits of doing it at 45. Now, if you have a family history, it's 10 years prior to the age of the first degree family member, like your brother, your mother, your sister, your father, or age 40, whatever comes first.
Got it. Okay. I just feel like there's so much that we did not get to talk about. We didn't talk about scruff. We didn't talk about
Yeah, we'll do this again sometime. I get to work with Scruff as their medical advisor. It's an awesome thing. I love Scruff, and it's quite an awesome platform to be able to go on. And I even take over their Instagram once a month and for an hour, and have a live with a doctor in LA called Dr. Leo Moore. And he is just so awesome. He's so smart. He's an LA public health doctor. And so together we go on there. We have no question left unanswered. Anything goes, because we're on those platforms. We don't get taken down because we're on these big verified checkmark platforms. Now, if I did it on my own platform, I would be kind of terrified that somebody would report me. But
they give you that platform.
Yeah,
I'm happy about that. All right, so I put your social media handles down on the scrolling bar, because if you are not following Dr. Carlton already, please, his Instagram, TikTok, and his Twitter. I can't put my Twitter down there, but his Twitter is down here.
You can find it. I heard.
Yeah.
Oh, I also want to, and I appreciate the links there. That's awesome. And your book is called The Life of Lust.
Yes.
And that is Memoirs of a Porn Star.
Yes.
The porn star. So I'm looking forward to reading that, actually.
Yes.
I can't wait.
We'll talk a little bit more offline to make sure that you get a copy of it.
All right. That's awesome.
Yes. Just real quick, for those of you who aren't familiar with who I am, King Kevyn, aka Venom, adult entertainer. And last Father's Day, it's going on a year. I released this book, and it really is my memoirs, and it's a life. It's not just my journey in adult, and it's not just porn. It's like my childhood, my family life, growing up in a church, being diagnosed with HIV, dating and doing porn, dating, living with HIV, having several discordant relationships. Like, yeah, so it's a lot that's covered in this book. So I guess what I should be doing is putting my website up. There we go. So
cool.
you guys can go to the website and order it. Actually, if you go to the website right now, our first pop-up is going to be a link to our show tonight. So you'll get to see Dr. Carlton and I on that. But from there, you can order the book. And I look forward to more people hearing the story. With that, I really look forward to being able to sit and chat with you again. This has been amazing.
Oh yeah,
I'm so grateful that you had the time to do this, and you offered your time to us to let us share and your knowledge, your experiences, and like you said, we have to do this again because there's so much we didn't get to touch on.
Absolutely, it's my honor, and wow, you're so awesome, man. I really appreciate what you're doing, and
thank you,
and helping spread this message, and your message is so important.
Thank you.
Well. Thank you
so much. So everyone, if you haven't already, make sure you guys again go down. It's all down at the bottom. Follow Dr. Carlton. Also, if you're watching this on Facebook, you guys go over to the YouTube channel. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share it with someone. Let us know if there was something that we talked about that you want to get more information on, or maybe you have some ideas about, or some input on what we talked about tonight. So we'd love to hear those things. This video will be available on the website, so you guys can go back to the website if you missed anything. And yeah, so we will see you guys next week. I'm excited because next week I will have Julian Kyng, who was a contestant on The Voice, coming on. So that's going to be kind of exciting. And he's from Philly, so hometown. Other than that, cheers, and I will see you next week. Cheers, Dr. Carlton.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.